Greetings and welcome to Live from Caid. Tonight's special guest is from the Kingdom of Ansteorran, Master Eule von Haginbald. And featuring a live performance by Mistress Adelaide de Beaumont and Sir Kenneth MacQuarrie of Tobermory. Me, I'm your announcer, Master Bjorn of the Northern Sea. And here's your host, Master Laertes, McBride.
Greetings and good evening. And look, I'm not muted right now. It's like a Christmas miracle. How is everyone doing this evening? I appreciate you tuning in this week. It's for our all Ansteorran show. So be sure to type y'all in the comments. As we do at the beginning of the show, just a couple of housekeeping announcements related directly to Caid. First up, a reminder that this month's Royal Thursday, which is a fascinating discussion with the Crown, every second Thursday of the month. It'll be at 7 o'clock Pacific time. Their Majesties will give us an update of what's going on around the kingdom and anything else. And then we have coming up the Drybergen Summer Arts Event, which is going to be on July 25th, that Saturday. It's from 9:30 to 6:30. There's a Facebook group about it. And that'll also be the day that we have our next Royal Court at 1 o'clock. So that's kind of the housekeeping. Let's bring in Bjorn, just one moment. And hey, Bjorn.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. I don't normally do this, but I just wanted to say that so the Laurel Medallion that I have right now, I just received from Wolf Park Studios. So Mistress Elspeth Stillwaters made this for me, and I just wanted to say thank you. So because I went really late. I tacked on at the very end part when she was really overloaded, so I didn't quite get it in time for Pride. But so there's my Laurel Medallion with the rainbow underneath it, and I will be wearing this a lot. I want to say thank you, Mistress Elspeth, for that. I really appreciate it. But just I feel so festive.
I know.
So,
it looks great on you. Very nice.
Thank you so much.
She appreciates the shout out. So your week was okay?
I found out that now that I'm 50 and over, I cannot take alcohol or fireworks in the levels I could before. Other than that, I'm fine.
But the levels you were before is far beyond most people. So you're back down to like normal now?
Well, still above normal, but not me. So yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, July 4th was my dad's birthday. So when growing up, I always got jealous that he got fireworks for his birthday and I did not. So, Well, anyway, let's turn over to what you have for the arts and sciences. I'm sure you have some fascinating things this week.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So in honor of the fact that this is an all Ansteorran performance and conversation show, I started in Ansteorran, Laertes started in Ansteorran. And so one of the first things that I wanted to talk about was many of the kingdoms that we have in the SCA have arts and sciences pages that really promote various web pages on their own. And one of those that's really quite fascinating is the one from the Kingdom of Ansteorran. So the Ansteorran Arts and Sciences resources page has all sorts of wonderful resources and articles and web pages attached to it. And of course, they are music resources, historical combat resources, of course, Project Gutenberg, all of the things that you would normally have, the Google Translate, Google Books, and it's just a really nice place to have one set of resources to look from. A lot of us have many of these web pages and websites maybe bookmarked on our own individual browsers. But if you don't, then I recommend you go to the Ansteorran resources page for their arts and sciences and just have a look at Stefan Florilegium or any of the other ones that many of us have known for many years and go, oh my gosh, I forgot about that one. And maybe peruse something that you looked at a few years ago but haven't seen since. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I can't believe we haven't brought this up before, is archaeology.org. And the reason why is that many of us have Archaeology magazine, or a lot of us got it. Remember when we got magazines, boys and girls? Do you remember? And one of the great things about this website is, of course, it is a sort of a companion piece to their actual paper publication, but it also goes into depth about all of the main archaeological digs and sites that are going on right now. And in keeping with an Ansteorran theme, one of the neat things that I saw during their midwinter issue was talking about cattle thieves. And I'm not saying that there's never been theft of cattle in Ansteorra this year, but there's a good chance that it happened there at some point in the past. You crack a book, it's in there. And anyway, those are the two that I recommend for this week in keeping with our guests and our musical guest.
So I think the big question really is it Ansteorra or Ansteorra or Hunsteorra? Because there's that H that is sometimes there too.
If it's the Dark Horde, it's Hunsteorra, I think. But it was always Ansteorra for me, but I have heard Ansteorra, but those are also the kind of people that don't wear trousers, they wear pants. And Ansteorra, no, it's Ansteorra. It's always been Ansteorra for me. So
right. Yeah. I mean, that goes without saying, although we said it. So speaking of Ansteorra, who's our first guest tonight?
Well, this would be Master Eule, who has a plethora of knowledge on many of the subjects that drew people to the medieval era in the first place. Falconry, equestrian things, jousting, the sort of things that when you see them, you cannot, without hesitation, say, this is transporting me back in time. So we're very I'm fascinated with him. I know a lot of us are, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he has to say to us.
All righty. Well, we'll put you away, and so you'll just be that ethereal voice, and let's bring our guest in. Hello.
Hello there.
Oh. Hi. So how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, Laertes. How are you? It's been a while since we've met in person.
Well, you know, I was actually out there last April and saw you. So
that's
okay. So we may have known each other a while. So, but one of the things I thought would be a great reason to bring you on here, not only on your areas of interest and the areas that you excelled, but you really there's, to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's three buckets of focused interests that you've had through the SCA. And I met you when you were in your someone says the chairs looks like you're Ming the Merciless right now.
I've been called worse.
Yeah, by friends of mine even. But well, you were in really focused in rapier when we first met.
Correct. Yes.
And I think back then you even were Avatar was the nomenclature you were using.
Early days, that was kind of my nickname. My name was always Eule, but nobody could pronounce it. They still can't pronounce it.
Right.
So I went by, my nickname was Avatar, but Eule von Haginbald is my actual SCA name.
And back then you always dressed in white, is what I remember. Is that
That's
correct?
Correct. That's
yeah,
correct.
Those people that always wear the same color all the time.
That's
yeah. But let's see. So Avatar. Now, if I remember right, there's a game out there that Avatar's the main character, is there not?
That is correct.
What game would that be?
Well, it's a game made by another white scarf of Ansteorra.
Right.
Chaminade Soleil de Seal, who is also known mundanely as Richard Garriott, who owned the company, or it was one of the founders of Origin Systems here in Austin. And he was famous for making Ultima 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and right. Ultima Online. And now he is working on the Quest of the Avatars, his current game. And a lot of the people, most of the people in the games are actually people from the SCA. And I never claimed that I was the Avatar. But one day did work for him a bit in the mid 90s, but on another game. And I asked him one day, he said something about me being the Avatar. I said, oh, no, I'm not the Avatar. And he said, oh, there can be only one. And we just left it at that.
Wow. Yeah,
But he does have light colored hair and blue eyes. So
I'd always heard that that you were the Avatar from the show. So
if you want to think that, I won't dissuade you from that.
Well, I'd heard in one of them, my household from out there, we appear as a gang of ruffians that harass the main character.
No.
Hard to believe, right?
Shocking.
I know.
I can't believe that.
So I'll just say you were one of the most accomplished and recognized as one of the most honorable fighters that was active in the community when I was out there at the time.
Well, thank you.
Now, I would never tell you that back at the time, but so then you kind of drifted into falconry, if I remember.
Correct. Yeah.
And how did you make that transition over there?
Well, so I had been interested in falconry since I was a kid. When the movie My Side of the Mountain came out back in 1967, and I was always interested in it, but you could not become licensed until you were 14. And by the time I got to be 14, as I am fond of saying, I was interested in other types of birds. And then I got into high school and then into college, and I just had other things that were interesting to me, like the SCA and rapier combat. And then one time at an SCA related event, it actually wasn't in the SCA, the gentleman who eventually became my sponsor for falconry walked in with a bird on his fist. And of course, I had to go over and talk to him. One thing led to another, and he ended up asking me to become his apprentice. And when I say apprentice, it's not like we look at apprentices, a Laurel apprentice relationship in the SCA. This is actually a federal program where there's a master and apprentice that studies for 2 years. And he asked me about a year later to become his apprentice, which was a dream of mine. And I did. And that was in 1996. So in 96 was when I went out and trapped my first bird and trained it up. And my first bird was a red-tailed hawk named Beva. And Beva is the name of the patron saint of falconers. One thing led to another, and today I've been doing it for 24 years. I'm a master falconer in the mundane world, but it was also the thing that put me over the top, if you will, and I became the first Laurel for falconry in 2000. There were some other things that I had been recognized for as well. And on Ansteorran, they don't give it for just one thing. It's for mastery in all the arts. And I did clothing and some woodworking and a bunch of other things. But I wrote in essence, a master's thesis on falconry, how it was done at the time, primarily around the mid 13th century. And then I took it from there, and I was seen quite often in the SCA with my falconry birds. And let's see, I was asked in the late 90s to put together a program at Gulf War, and that turned into a permanent facility there or a permanent place for falconers to come in from around the known world and show off their birds. Unfortunately, the last couple of years, we haven't had that set up because there was a tragedy that happened with somebody and their birds that was very prominent there a few years ago, and we've kind of lost steam, but I'd like to see it happen again. Unfortunately, my last bird died several years ago, and I did not go and get another one. I still maintain my license, and I occasionally think about getting back into it, but today most of my focus is on horses. And at any given time, though, I might have a horse, a hawk, and a hound. And the hounds that I train are Vizslas, which are the original falconry dog, and the reason why I got them. If you're familiar with the Devonshire hunting tapestries, there is a sight hound, and there is a mastiff type hound, and there is a pointer, and that pointer is the Vizsla, which was primarily used for hunting with birds of prey in the 15th century. And so I have Never done all three at the same time, but I have done any two combinations of horse, hawk, and hound. And it's still on my bucket list to go out and hunt with my dogs, with my birds on horseback. And someday I hope to do it.
Wow. So I went back up for just a second. So if you're a master falconry, can you only take one apprentice? Is it like the Sith?
There can only be three. No, I can take three apprentices now, I believe. It's been a while since I've taken them, and the federal laws have changed a bit. But I believe I can take three. You become a master falconer after 5 years, and you can take, now I believe you can take an unlimited number of birds, and they can be captive bred or caught out of the wild. And I think I can teach three, and I've only ever had two, and they happen to be in the SCA as well. But I haven't had apprentices, falconry apprentices, in quite some time. And I've actually never had a laurel apprentice. So that might change someday. I don't know.
So is it like a checklist and requirements to make it through the process from apprentice?
Absolutely. It is you are federally and state licensed, and there is a 100 question test that you have to score an 80 or above on. And you have to have somebody who's willing to sponsor you for 2 years, and that's kind of the most difficult part, because you have to get to know the organization. I mean, it's just like becoming a squire or an apprentice or a protege in the SCA. It doesn't just happen. You have to go find somebody to teach you, and that's the same thing mundanely in falconry. That's how it works. And so you find somebody that will sponsor you. You work with them for 2 years, and at the end of 2 years, if you've done well, they'll sign off and you become what's called a general falconer, and you do that for 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, you will automatically become a master falconer, unless there's some reason the state or the feds don't want you to do that. And I don't know of a situation where that's ever happened.
I would imagine part of the challenge of doing falconry is just having the space for the birds and where you can work with the birds and such.
Yeah, you have to have facilities that are at least 64 square feet per bird. Most people have about that. No, I'm sorry, 32 square feet, but most of us do 64 or larger. It's called a mews, MEWS. And in fact, if you are in London today and you look for the Royal Mews, it's not a falconry mews anymore. It's the Royal Stables. So, but it was originally the mews for the royal birds and the English royalty birds. So you have the facilities. They're not huge, but generally it's outside. But some people do have their facilities inside. You have to weigh your bird, depending on the species, at least once, maybe 2, 3, 4 times a day, because you have to keep a really close eye on how much your bird weighs, because there's only a small weight range in which they'll respond to you. If they're not hungry, they're not going to hunt. If they're really hungry, if they're starving, they're not going to hunt. They don't have the energy. In the case of like a red-tailed hawk, which is a medium-sized or a large to medium-sized bird, that weight range is maybe 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces. But on something like a small falcon, like a kestrel, it's like 10 grams. That bird can lose that amount of weight in like an hour if it's in a cold room or something like that. So you have to take care of these animals. They are not pets. It is not pet keeping. It is a hunting sport. If you don't normally hunt, you should not become a falconer, because that's what the falconry license is to hunt with a bird of prey. And we actively hunt our birds at least 6 months out of the year. The rest of the time, they're sitting in their mews. You feed them as much as they want, because that's when their feathers drop out, and you want the new feathers to grow back in nice and strong. That's called the molt. All birds do that every summer.
And if people were interested in getting into falconry, are there federal resources or
yes, and in fact, the resources today, the internet was just getting started when I started this. And so today you can just log on to the internet and do a search for falconry, and you will find all sorts of resources. But the first legal step you need to take is to get a hold of your State Department of Natural Resources, or in the case of Texas, it's the Department of Parks and Wildlife. But you get a hold of your state animal whoever it is that manages your wild animal resources and parks and stuff like that in your state, and they will have somebody who is in charge of their permitting for falconry, and they can tell you where to go to find falconer groups and stuff like that in your area, or at least in your state. But if you're in the SCA, there is an SCA falconry group that on Facebook that you can join. It's a public group, but you can also reach out to me on Facebook. It's Steve Hemphill, and I'll be happy to send you in the right direction if you're interested.
That's awesome. Now, I want to use our time wisely, so we're just going to do an abrupt...
Yeah, you haven't gotten to the fun stuff yet.
Yeah, we're going to do an abrupt transition to the third bucket of interest for you, which is what you're kind of more actively pursuing now, is equestrian activities and jousting, right?
Correct. So that started in 2002. I did grow up with horses, but we moved to a country estate north of Austin, Texas, Brindalad, Ansteorran, and with some acreage, and we wanted to get into horses. So our first horse was Lucky. That was in 2002, and he was 9 years old, and he is 28 years old this year. Still have him. He still does everything in the SCA that I asked him to do back then. But since then, we've gone from one horse to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And all 5 of our horses, we expect to do a number of things, both of the SCA. My wife and I both have been eventers. We're active in dressage as well. I have recently started teaching people how to joust. And within the SCA, we started doing SCA equestrian activities in 2002, and have been going to Gulf Wars, which is pretty much the largest equestrian group or equestrian in the known world. With your Great Western War comes in as a close second, and I haven't gotten a chance to be out there yet, but hopefully someday I'll make and maybe bring my own horses. But I have a lot of friends in Caid who are equestrians that may be watching right now. I don't know. But one thing led to another. A lot of us got together and sat down, and it's like, okay, we're doing all of this stuff on horseback that's, basically what you would do in a mundane situation with, play days and stuff like that, where we're, tilting at rings or hitting targets and stuff like that. It's like, jousting, when can we do jousting? Well, at the time in the late 2000s, it was actually listed in the equestrian rules that you could not race, you could not vault, and you could not joust. And we dug into why, and it was because the insurance didn't allow it. Well, an enterprising young Ansteorran named Sir Alexis Labouche did some background and found out, well, here's an insurance company that will let us do it, and their premiums are lower than what we're paying right now. So one thing led to another. We switched up the rules, and in 2007, I believe it was, jousting became legal in the SCA, and we started off with what we called safe and sound jousting, because we knew that the SCA was not going to jump into what the rest of the world was doing right off the bat. So we came up with a jousting lance. It was 2 feet of styrofoam, about 2 inches in diameter, and a cardboard tube with a wooden handle. And we experimented with that in Sir Alexis's backyard. We came up with a plan, as you do with experiments in the martial world in the SCA. We did experiments. We put the rules forward. We were allowed to do it. And then one thing led to another, and then it became mainstream to all of the kingdoms. Well, Alexis and me and Sir Gideon here also in Brindalad and a few others were like, okay, when can we take the next step? We want to joust with wooden lances to get to the closest to real medieval jousting that we possibly can. So we had that intention all along, but we knew we couldn't start with that. So what we did was, again, we put together an experiment. We presented it to the Society Air Marshal and the Society Equestrian Officer at Gulf War in 2009, I believe it was, where we had the first wooden lance joust in the SCA. We were approved for an experiment. We went from there, and we kept it as an experiment for quite some time, because unlike the foam jousting, our intention was you could take standard legal heavy kit, chivalric fighting kit, and joust with that on horseback. and because we wanted a very low bar to entry. But once we got up to wooden lances, we knew we were going to have to raise the armor standards. You couldn't have, an inch gap in your visor, or you couldn't have a bar grill helm, because the wood splinters would go, when the lance breaks, it could be just like a spear, and you need to be protected against that. So we are wearing the actual armor that you would have worn in a joust in the 13th, 14th, 15th century. Most of us do 15th century, some of us do 16th century, but the majority of people are doing 15th because that's what the rest of the world is doing. And that's a longer discussion, which I won't go into, but we have a very high armor standards. Like, for instance, the slit that we look through cannot be bigger than 3/8 of an inch because of the wooden shards that could possibly go into your eye. The way that your visor, in fact, I've got one right over here, the way that your visor is oriented, if I can get my finger over there, the way that the visor is oriented is that the bottom of the visor sticks out further than the back of the visor, because the lance would be coming up at an angle, and it protects your face from having a lance shard going in. We have not had any horse or person seriously injured in jousting since we've been doing this 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And we have a very good safety record that we're very, very proud of. So I am fond of saying that I would put anybody who is a wooden lance jouster in the SCA up against the top jousters in the international competitive jousting world, because they're that good. I am really proud of where we are in the program right now. And to throw in a little thing, again, like what we were talking about with falconry, if you're interested in jousting, I'm the guy that you would want to talk to. I am the Deputy Society Earl Marshal for wood jousting. And the program is administered from a corporate level, not from a kingdom level. We do have quite a number of authorized jousters and marshals around the known world. And if you want to get in touch with me, and we also have an FCA jousting group on Facebook, hit us up and I can tell you where the people in your area are and tell you the easiest way to get started in not just wooden lance jousting, but foam jousting as well.
That's amazing. Now, you also compete on an international level too, correct? So
Correct.
Where have you gone to competitions at overseas?
Well, I have been to England, Germany, Denmark for the World Championships or the European Championships twice. I've had invitations to Poland, but I haven't been able to make it. I've been to tournaments in Australia, but not as a competitor. I was invited as a competitor, but at the last minute, Fox Sports wanted to do a live broadcast of the finals of that tournament. So the jousting organizer, the tournament organizer, asked me to be a color commentator for the live broadcast, and that was quite a lot of fun. But that picture that you put up just a little while ago of me, that was my crowning moment, if you will. And had I thought about it, I would have pulled it out, but I don't want to get up and get it right now. That photograph was taken of me at the Royal Armouries in Leeds at the Easter Joust in 2017. It is, as far as we know, the only tournament that is actually held by a sitting member of royalty, and that is Queen Elizabeth II. No, she wasn't at that tournament. I was part of the English team. And in this particular photograph, I'm being struck by my good friend from Norway, Ivar. And that was the top of my bucket list for jousting internationally, because it's a royal tournament sponsored by the Royal Armouries at Leeds. And it was my dream to someday get a chance to ride in that, compete in that. I competed with as part of the English team, and the English team won the team contest, which was the Sword of, I can't remember if it's Sword of Honor or Sword of Chivalry. I think it's Sword of Honor, which is on display at the Royal Armouries. And a good friend of mine from France, the French team, Luc Petillot, won the individual award, which is getting his name engraved on a 15th century gilded hunting horn that is the personal property of Queen Elizabeth. And that is quite an honor to be able to win that particular prize. You don't get to touch it. You only get to look at it.
I'm not going to comment on that. But, anyway.
Good. I've seen your discretion over the years.
Yeah. People in Caid went, what? Well, it sounds fascinating. I mean, being able to pursue these passions and really excel at them. And to see the accomplishments that you have over the years. I really do appreciate you coming on. Now, one of the things we like to do before I let you go.
Hey, can I put in another punch, a little ad right here that I forgot to mention? We also produce outside the SEA. I'll do it real quick. Here in Austin, every year at the end of April, around the 23rd of April, because that's Shakespeare's birthday as well as St. George's Day, we hold Lists on the Lake, which has become the largest competitive jousting tournament in the world. And we have people coming to our tournament from all over the world. Unfortunately, this year we had to cancel it. We moved it to October. We just announced it. Unfortunately, we had to cancel it for October, but we're hoping to be back the last weekend in April of 2021 or 2021.
I actually went last year.
That's right. That's when you said April.
And I was a little disappointed. It was actually a list beside the lake instead of lists on the lake, because I thought that would have been more exciting. But the facilities are great. And you have a replica of the Globe Theater.
Personal estate too. So
yeah, and you have a replica of the Globe Theater on the property.
That is correct. The Curtain Theater is a 75% scale of the Globe Theater that the Barron's Men, that I was one of the founders of. My wife was also founder of, and she's also currently the president of. That's where they hold their Shakespearean, their Elizabethan plays. It's an Elizabethan acting troupe.
Well, one question from Bjorn from the Ethereal. Let's see if we can hear him. Bjorn, do you have a question?
I do, if Master Eule can hear me.
I can.
So is it true that the Wooden Lance program is the only martial program that is administered at the society level? Because I think all the others have kingdom level offices, but that is the only one. And is it
that is correct? That's something new.
And it's primarily because of the rigorous requirement for. Okay, because I know that Caid has a lot of fantastic equestrians, and we have people that, as you have said, Great Western War is getting larger and larger every year. It's not quite as large as Gulf Force, but it's getting there. And I think that one of our own also, who was formerly here, Mistress Arabella, is currently the society
equestrian officer, correct?
Equestrian. So it's weird how the web keeps getting woven together. How much did you have to do with the formulation of the rules for the Wooden Lance? I
was involved in the original. I did not write, but I was and I wouldn't go so far as say I was a co-author, but there was a lot of us sitting around a table, putting out our ideas for the original draft of the experimental rules. But then when it went mainstream in January of last year, I took over the role of the marshal in charge of that, and I rewrote or I updated the rules, made them a little bit clearer in some spaces. But primarily, I created a test, and the test is actually from beginning to end, and you can do it over 2 sessions. There are 36 passes that you do in that test, and it is rare that you will do 36 passes in a tournament. But the reason why there's that many, and there are different levels, some are in armor, some of them are not. Some of them are against an opponent, about half of them are not. So it's not full armor doing 36 passes one after another. But what we want to see is, how do you handle the lance? And we want to see you when you're tired, your horse is tired and cranky, and how you react safely. Most people do it fine, first 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 passes. But when you get up to 24, 25, 26 passes, that's when things start to fall apart. And that's what we want to see. We want to see how well you handle the stress, you and your horse both handle the stress at that critical moment. Ideally, you will never get to that level of stress when you're in an actual tournament. But there is a lot of, obviously there's physical stress involved, but there's a lot of mental stress too. We joke around when we are teaching new ground crew is understand that the jousters are going to be really short-tempered with you. Don't take it personally. They're not mad at you. They're juggling a whole lot of things inside that metal suit, both in their head and in their hand. And sorry, Laertes, but between their legs as well with the horse. So there's a lot going on. And we just want everybody to be very, very safe. And one of the nice things about jousting is that when you go out and joust against an opponent, you are actually putting your life in that person's hand, and you want to trust them implicitly, 100%, to have your horse's well-being first and yours second. And I can safely say that everybody in the SCA very much takes that to heart. And that's another reason why I think we're such a tight-knit group, is because we really, really look out for one another. And we joke around about, everybody jokes around about us being the elitists. And it's like, yes, we're elitists. Come join us. It's a lot of fun to be an elitist.
Well, thank you so much.
You bet.
Well, thank you. So the last thing, because I remember Bjorn before we got into it, we like to play a little trivia game. The audience loves. Oh, there was one question. Do you take your animals overseas for competition?
You know, that's the first question that everybody asks me when I tell them I travel internationally to joust. And the answer is, unfortunately, no. But the reason is that it is very expensive to travel. To take your horse one way to Europe is about $10,000. To Australia is about $25,000. But in order to reach that level, we need to have sponsorship money that we're not there yet. We also need to be recognized by an international equestrian organization called the FEI, which is who runs all of the equestrian activities at the Olympics. Because when you're a member of that organization, you can get what is in essence a horse passport that helps you go through the procedure a lot easier. Because there's, as you can imagine, there's a lot of paperwork, both from the United States and whatever country you're going to. And so there's a lot of money involved there. But we may get there someday. But today, when we travel internationally, like if somebody comes to my tournament, I provide them with trained jousting horses. If I go overseas, they provide me with trained jousting horses. And so we're on horses that really do know what they're doing. And we try to give people good horses so that they can have a positive experience at our tournament.
All right, so we're going to play a little trivia game for you. Hey, Bjorn, what are we calling it this week?
We're calling it horsing around and shooting the bird.
So, you know, you all this stuff about falconry and being interested in horses. I'm sure you know a lot about films that feature horses and hawks. So,
Yes.
I'm going to give you a log line and see if you can identify the movie from the log line. And I can give you more clues, but you get less points if you need more clues. Okay, so the first one, I mean, this is the obvious one, so I'm starting easy. The story is about a young thief who unwillingly gets involved with a warrior.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, what would that be?
Lady Hawk?
Oh my gosh. I told you I started real easy with that one, right?
So a little side note there, you could have put a picture of my primary jousting horse, which looks just like the one in that movie, as well as my red-tailed hawk.
Okay, so I figured that one's easy. So very nice. Okay, second one. Okay. A sword and sorcery fantasy about a young man's search for revenge. Well, that doesn't tell you anything. Armed with supernatural powers, the handsome hero and his animal allies wage war against marauding forces. Horses.
That's a pretty broad question.
Well, no, I'll give you the key phrase was this handsome hero and his animal allies.
Oh, Beastmaster.
That is right, Beastmaster. With Mark Senior. It doesn't look anything like this illustration. And Rip Torn, because you know it's a good adventure with Rip Torn in the game.
Yes.
Okay, last one. This one's This one I'll be impressed if you get. Okay. Just from how poorly written the sentence is, you should know this is not a great one. This is a story of heroic deeds and the bitter struggle for the triumph of good over evil, and of a wondrous sword wielded by a mighty hero when the legions of darkness stalk the land. That's one sentence, by the way.
This one, what?
That was one sentence, by the way, from the official synopsis. So.
And it's a movie, right?
Yeah, I'll give you another one. It's totally throw you off. Inspired by Seven Samurai and Fistful of Dollars, the result was an English version of the story set in the Dark Ages. You still don't know. Okay, I'll give
so
you.
It's interesting you should say that, because I love quite a lot. I like all of the movies that are started with this, which is the best Western ever made.
Right.
So I'm not sure I'm familiar with.
Okay, Jack Palance is the bad guy.
I know it.
Someone in the comments has it. I'm sorry, the viewers have beat you to Hawk the Slayer.
Hawk the Slayer. Oh, okay. I thought you were going to ask me a question about A Knight's Tale. No birds in it, though.
Exactly.
Hawk the Slayer. I don't think I've seen that.
Well, technically, the only hawk is the dude. There's no birds, but it fit with the theme I was going with. So.
I understood.
Anyway, thank you so much for your time today. I thought it was super interesting just to hear everything that you've done, that you're willing to share this knowledge and be a resource for people if they want to pursue these lines. I think speaks a lot to why you are so recognized in the community. So,
well, thank you. Find me on Facebook. If you got questions, I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Say hello to your lovely wife. And
I will. Great to see you again, my friend.
I know it's been a long time that we've known each other. Hopefully I'll make it out to List on the Lake again. This title.
There you go.
And if you have any questions,
and I'll try and make it to Great Western War.
All righty. Well, we'll see you then. Thank you again. Have a great evening.
You bet. Thank you too, Bjorn.
All right. Wow. You did pretty good. I didn't expect him to get Hawk the Slayer anyways.
No one's going to get Hawk the Slayer, but when you said Jack Palance, I mean, just bearer of the Mind Sword. It's,
oh, man.
I had that on Laserdisc. That's how long ago that was.
Yeah. I don't think I actually have sat through the whole movie. I think I've watched parts of it, but not the whole thing. So, and speaking of great entertainment, how's that for a segue? Who do we have coming up this evening?
We have some people that share DNA with both Caid and Ansteorran, and actually a couple other places, Drachenwald and the like, and they are a fantastic duo. Sir Kenneth MacQuarrie of Tobermory and Mistress Adelaide de Beaumont, who will be coming and visiting with us and performing for us.
All righty, well, let's bring them in. I don't think they heard you because we were having issues with this. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So here we go. Let's cut over to them just a moment.
Ooh,
see, it all worked out in the end. We can see you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Can you hear me?
And I can hear you.
All right.
There's a little drama going on while we were having that interview, but this is great. So how are you guys?
Oh, we're doing fine. Hunkered down here in the house, and everything is healthy and happy as far as we're concerned.
Now, y'all have a history out here in Caid, correct?
Yes, we do.
So y'all started out here, or?
Well, my lady was started in the West, and then she came down to Caid in the 80s. And then I came into California and started dating her. And then I came into the SCA into Caid in 1988. And we were there for a couple of years after that. And then I was in the military, so I got transferred to England, and we were in Drachenwald, and that's where I was knighted. And then we moved all around and ended up in Ansteorran in 2003. We've been here ever since.
And can I
please
be
do.
heard? By the way, you asked the question earlier on in the show. The correct pronunciation is Ansteorran. It should be 2 syllables because it's Old English for the star, but nobody says it that way.
Nobody does.
So we just nod and smile and move on.
It's Ansteorran as far as everybody here is concerned.
I am chastened.
Yes, Bjorn, I can see is hanging his head in shame at the moment. So So how did y'all get into performing? Were you outside the SCA and you brought it in, or kind of go hand in hand, or how'd that start?
Well, I was always, ever since I was a kid. And then when I came in the SCA, I was, I was with Lisa Adelaide, and she was already performing in the SCA, and she also had been playing guitar and singing well before that. So we were both musicians and performers of some degree before we ever came in the SCA. And then once I came in, she started playing me some music, and she was a good friend of Derek, Master Baldwin of Erebor. So he came over to her house one day and started playing some stuff in a weird tuning, and they were Stan Rogers songs. And so I was like, oh, started with Witch of the Westmoreland. I want to learn how to play those. So I started with some covers of Archie Fisher songs, and then after that, we just...
Then he started coming to tournaments, and Mistress Angelina said, "Great, sit here in my tent, play songs for me all day." And that lasted exactly as long as her then husband, Sir Stephen de Hune, said, "You're a large, strapping young man. You need to come over here and learn how to fight." And Angelina looked deeply into his eyes and said, "If he hurts his hands, I'll kill you."
But we recorded a couple of recordings. Again, sort of mostly covers, a couple of original songs, and then it became all original stuff in the early 2000s, and we just put out an album every decade or so.
Well, so what piece are you going to perform for us this evening?
Well, something short and pithy, and something that we can. We're going to do "Band of Brothers," which is one of the more popular songs that we wrote. And,
alrighty, well,
just so go ahead. I'm going to be taking off the headphones when you say go ahead.
All right. Well, the stage is yours. Do what you need to do, and I'll look forward to hearing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Taking off the headphones now because I can't sing and hit the notes when the headphones are on, which is a very strange thing. But anyway, so we are going to. There's a third electronic/virtual member of the band here. This is a block rocker, and I recorded one drum and one harmony so that we can have 3-part harmony,
and drums,
which
and
is
guitars at the same
kind of
time.
hard to do when you only have 2 people. So hopefully this will work out. If we are marked this day to die, we are enough to lose. But if we live, the fewer men, the greater fame accrues. I pray you wish not one man more who thinks to claim a share. For we have honors fairly won, and there is none to spare. We band of brothers, for if you shed your blood with me, you are my brother. And men in England now bed shall feel the curse. They were not here to fight with us upon St. Crispin's Day. Proclaim it now throughout my host, to bear no false pretense. If you've no stomach for this fight, depart and get you hence. The price of passage you shall have, and rations generous. We will not bear his company, who fears to die with us. We band of brothers, for if you shed your blood with me, you are my brother. And men in England now bed shall feel the curse. They were not here to fight with us upon St. Crispin's Day. He that shall live to see old age and come safe home at last will on this vigil feast his friends and tell of glories past. He will with pride display his wounds and scars, however deep. And any man who was not here shall hold his manhood cheap. We band of brothers, for if you shed your blood with me, you are my brother. And men in England now abed shall feel the curse. They were not here to fight with us upon St. Crispin's Day. Old men forget, and each man here may crumble and decay. But he'll remember while he lives what feats he did this day. So shall the good man teach his son until the world is new. And to our memories we'll drink, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For if you shed your blood with me, you are my brother. And men in England now bed shall feel the curse. They were not here to fight with us upon St. Crispin's Day. And men in England now bed shall feel the curse. They were not here to fight with us upon St. Crispin's Day. And hopefully that came across.
Yeah, it was great. Oh my gosh, that was fantastic. You know, we actually have an Agincourt tourney in my home barony every year. So
where is your home barony?
Come out and play that live during the next tournament in October.
Altavia.
So. Oh yeah, Altavia.
Oh, okay, Altavia.
So yeah, you know, just the best barony. I used to be landed baron there. So anyway, thank y'all so much for coming on. I know it's a little late your way.
Oh, it's fine. We're musicians. Late to bed, late to rise.
You're just getting up. But thank you again.
Makes a man
And
unhealthy, poor, and a musician.
You know, wash your hands, stay healthy, and well, you know. Oh, is there a place that people can go to get CDs of yours?
Well, the CDs, the physical CDs, are now available only either through Amazon. Or if, in fact, I'm not even sure they're shipping physical CDs yet because of COVID-19. They stopped. But digitally, like most people are listening to, iTunes is probably the best way. Under Ken Therio and Lisa Therio, instead of obviously our SCA names, we put Ken Therio. In fact, that song is from Ken Therio. Human History is the name of the album.
Well, sweet. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. How old am I? Asking where you can go buy a CD at. So, well, continue good health. Hopefully, we'll be able to get that event together sometime and hear you perform live. But thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you for having us.
Something that you can't hear him. So. But anyway, have a great evening. Thank you again, and we'll see you around. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was awesome.
I have that CD.
Oh, really?
2008. Band of Brothers. I know that one well. Yes, I have it. So yeah.
Well, a fascinating show again, and you know, being able to highlight people from a sister kingdom far away where we both have a shared history at. I think that was fantastic. And speaking of being able to reach out to other kingdoms to highlight some of those people, let's talk about who we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. You know, next week we have for Caid, we have the newly installed Deputy for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and she will be here to talk about taking over that mantle, being the first person in that office, and really what her plans are from there. And who do we have for Bardic that week?
That will be Mistress Zof from the Mid-Realm. We're really excited to have her. She does a lot of like in persona Hungarian performances and music, and just we're really excited to have her with us next week.
And then the following week, for those who watch our show to feel like there's not enough drinking or cussing, we've reached out and we're going to have the host of Between Two Peers, correct?
Yes, we are. We're going to have Duchess Helga and Mistress Tulia with us as our guests as we kind of commiserate about, so what do you do with a COVID-inspired SCA podcast thing? So, and then, of course, we also have another paragon of the West that will be bardic performer for them. That would be Mistress Loki's daughter, who will be the musical guest for us that week. So just a big West celebration on the 20th.
Nice. And then the following week, I'm trying to arrange something special. I'll see if we can actually lock in this guest or not, but I think everyone will be very fascinated to have an opportunity to talk to this person. So, well, that's it for our show tonight. I want to thank our guests for coming on, and I want to thank you, Bjorn, for being there and everything that you do. I hope you have a great week.
I hope you do the same, and I hope everyone stays safe, wash your hands, take care of yourselves, and make sure you wear those masks, people. I mean, in my case, it makes me look better.
Well, thank you very much. And again, join us next week when once again we will be live from Caid. We'll see you then.